Hello and welcome. Welcome everybody. We're just going to give it a couple minutes while we have some folks filter in before we get started. Hi folks, welcome. Just going to wait another minute here before getting started so we can have folks filter in. In the meantime, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Share with us where you're joining us from. Hi Colin, Winnipeg, awesome. Ashley, great to have you here. Hi Gord. Hi Trent, Waterloo, Ontario, awesome. Great to have you all here. Okay, I think we can probably get started. Welcome everybody to our first session of our Predictive Success webinar series for 2022. We're so excited to have you here for this discussion. Today, our session is called Innovation as Opportunity, the CEO Perspective, and we're so excited to have David Kim here as our guest. So we'll move in and I'll show you our agenda today. We've got a great session planned out. We're going to start just with some brief housekeeping. Then we'll move into the case for innovation with Eric Irwin. Eric's going to go over the state of talent optimization for 2022. Next, we'll move into the CEO perspective with David Kim, our special guest today. Hear some stories from David, and then we will open up the floor for a Q&A. Just some quick housekeeping. Any questions that you have during the session, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So feel free to submit those anytime, and we will we'll touch on them at the end of the session during the Q&A. We're, as you know, leaving the comment box open. We'd love to hear your thoughts throughout the session. Any thoughts you have, we want this to be an open discussion, so feel free to pop those in there throughout. And finally, we are recording this session, so we'll be sent out to all attendees. And if you do have any questions about the session, feel free to email me. I just popped my email at the bottom there, and you can visit us online at predictivesuccess.com. All right, so I'd love to introduce you to our speakers today. We've got Eric Irwin here. He's a managing principal with us here at Predictive Success. Eric brings over 20 years of experience supporting leaders, teams, and individuals for driving growth and results. He was a top executive at Walmart and Shoppers, and has lots of experience guest lecturing for schools like Queen's University. So super excited to have Eric hosting the session. And our special guest today, David Kim, the co-founder and CEO of Massive Insights. We're so thrilled to have you, David. David brings us over 20 years of experience in strategy, analytics, data visualization, and he's very well known for supporting over 500 projects with all kinds of top brands, including Fit Kids, Home Depot, Hydro One, to name a few. So thank you so much for joining us, David. And with that, I will pass it over to Eric to get us started here.
Okay, well, thank you, Alyssa, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. We have been talking for quite a while about innovation and the need for innovation. Certainly with the way COVID has impacted businesses, I hear this from my clients constantly, having to do 1 million one-time tasks as COVID was put upon us that they never thought they'd ever have to do, and 1 million one-time tasks to get out of it and go back in and get out of it again, and who knows where it's going next. But certainly it is driving us to innovate, to change how we've operated our businesses. And Predictive Index has been monitoring this constantly. They regularly run CEO surveys and to get the pulse. We've got over 10,000 clients worldwide, and really taking the pulse of what are the common trends that we're hearing and seeing. And the latest report has just come out this month. That is a survey of over 326 executives, as you see here. And I'm going to go through some of the slides of some of the key points of this survey, but we will send it out to everyone attending the actual CEO report. So you will get a copy, so you don't have to, quickly take notes on all of this, but it will be in your inbox after this session is over. So one of the key things that came out of the survey itself was that executives are feeling the sting of attrition. You see there 1 in 5 workers quit in the last 6 months. I know there was a note out that November's, which is the latest data that we have, it is actually the highest amount of turnover in the entire year. So it's not slowing down. If anything, it's gaining momentum. And when we talked, or when Predictive Index talked to the CEOs, you see there on the screen there the top 3 reasons. Number one, 32%, it was inflexibility of hours, work options. People still want to continue to work from home. It's been an incredible benefit for many people. It's certainly something that people expect. It's now gone from a nice to do to an entitlement, and that's really what's driving a lot of decision making around this, around staying with a business. And then, of course, the lack of personal professional development opportunities, and stress and burnout. Stress and burnout came out in the last survey as well as a major driver of attrition. So it's something to watch. How much pressure are you putting on your people, particularly your managers, because it always flows downhill. So you really want to think about stress and burnout as you're moving forward. How can you innovate really to alleviate that stress and burnout? The key thing on this is that the takeaway here is workplace flexibility, the hybrid working, it's here to stay. It may be something that you don't want to do, but it's something you're going to have to do. It's almost, decades ago you couldn't operate a business without a phone. It was something that everybody had to have. Well, that was an innovation at the time. Well, now it's the same thing here, allowing people for this workplace flexibility, the hybrid work where you're in the office once or twice a month or once or twice a week, depending on the situation, whatever you negotiate. But that hybrid work is here to stay, and that's really the key takeaway. And yet, the answer to this is talent optimization. We're really getting the most out of your people, investing in your people, and yet you see here on the screen that only 38% of people have a talent strategy. Only 50% of companies have a business strategy. With those million one-time tasks, the HR professionals, the HR leaders that I talk to, they're all incredibly stressed. They're all, the workload's incredible. Who's got time to do this? And it's showing in the survey results. And yet, it is such a cost for people to leave your business. I know when I was at Walmart, it was costing us $4,000 every time just to replace the cashier. That's unskilled labor. And certainly to replace a senior executive, you're talking multiples of their annual salary. So while it says $11,000 is the average, it is certainly a wide range, but the bottom line is this is negatively impacting your bottom line. So it's definitely worth investing in your people. It does, shoring up your bottom line from that perspective. And to support this, and it's not a surprise in the survey, 75% of executives saying they're feeling it. It's hitting their business, and it's hitting their bottom line, their financial stability. As mentioned earlier, only 1 out of every 2 companies have a business strategy. Again, this could be bandwidth. I don't have the time. I know it's something I want to do, but how do I do it? But business strategies are critical. And even less, you see the trend, I don't have time to focus on my people. I certainly don't have time to develop a talent strategy. And yet we know that's what people that are leaving, when we look at the surveys, that's what they want. They want people to invest in them. And I'll show you that stat in a second. To be competitive, 51% of companies are now offering remote or hybrid work. It is steadily growing. It is something that you can expect to see increase over time. But one in 4 executives, almost 25%, feel ill-prepared to lead through this great resignation. They just don't have the tools or the time or the bandwidth, but it's critical to do that. Because companies with the right people in the right roles have 42% less turnover. Invest in your people, put people in roles, ask them to do things that they'll want to do. They're going to be engaged, and it just shows. In this increase, turns into increased productivity, increased employee engagement. Of course, it just flows that way. And equally disturbing, if not more so, while it was 1 in 5 employees that have left in the last 6 months, 16% of executives have quit in the last year, which is really alarming, because they are the leaders. They're what everybody follows. They are the symbols of organizations. And the number one reason executives are quitting, again, inflexible work hours, but focus on the other ones too. Lack of trust amongst my senior team. Everybody's stressed, and I don't trust the people that I'm working with. Lack of personal or professional development opportunities. My company's not investing in me the way they used to. And this is driving the exodus. And I guess the key thing is, how can you innovate to keep the costs down and at the same time, get that top talent and keep that top talent that you want? The number one reason executives stay, 12% say it's because of good job fit. Companies always asking me to do things that I want to do, that I'm passionate about. And it translates into, I find purpose in my work. I am being developed. I see a real career path for myself. I believe in my management team and where they're going. And of course, the flexible work hours. You want to hit these 5 areas. It makes a difference. It really does. So before I hand this off to David, the key areas in terms of focus that came out of the survey was find a purpose for your employees, create a talent strategy that does that. What is your mission? And does everybody understand it? Are they going to support it? Are you investing in your people? That's really the key. It's raising the bar on how you manage your people. Yes, benefits are the number one driver of retention, but look at that strong sense of culture, belief in senior leadership team, and a physiological safe work, of course. With COVID, that's why that's appeared, if nothing, but that's always been their health and safety. And then, of course, flexible work hours. So these are the key areas. Again, we'll send this report out to you so you can read it at your leisure and really understand what that is. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to David Kim, as CEO of Massive Insights, to take this forward. So David, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. And thanks, Erwin, Eric, for sharing the insights and stats from the survey. It's always great to get that broader perspective from some trusted sources. So thanks for that. Just sharing my screen here. As a quick introduction to who Massive Insights is, let me just adjust one thing here. Really quickly, Massive Insights is a professional services organization in the data analytics space. We help organizations across a wide range of industry verticals, just a few highlighted here, and it's a lot of fun. We have a passion for getting into data and helping our customers and our clients the ability to transform their data into profits. Some of the services that we offer include data strategy, cloud architecture, helping folks really harness the power of their data through insights and analytics, as well as the more advanced data science techniques such as machine learning. And we've got a pretty robust business intelligence dashboarding data visualization practice, alongside some strategic elements in both marketing automation as well as measurement planning. And to simplify who we are and what we do, we help companies acquire data, aggregate it, and make it accessible, analyze it, and action it. So with that, I'll pass it back to Eric to maybe guide us through the next section. Eric, will you be doing a bit of the Q&A?
Yes. Why don't we start with that? Alyssa, do we have any questions yet, or?
We did have a couple questions come through in advance of the session. David, would you prefer to start with some questions to kind of guide the session, or did you want to wait until the end?
Yeah, we can wait until the end. Apologies. I thought Eric might be posing the questions and I can jump in with the answers.
Oh yeah, no worries, no worries. Well,
I can start with, or unless you have Alyssa, I'm not cutting you off. I'm stepping on you.
No, you're all good. I think it's best if we save questions till the end.
Okay.
Just so that we can get all of David's insights, and then the questions will come through afterwards.
Then I'll start with that. So let's start with, you've got some incredible experience, David. I know working with you and your team, I have certainly seen your commitment to innovation. It's like you're always pressing and pushing yourselves. And what lessons have you learned throughout your career that has made this? It's like you've embedded it in the culture of your organization.
Wonderful. Thanks. And I had a preview of some of the questions from Eric. So I prepared some slides to help me respond to them. The first question around lessons learned, I think I can best describe it as back in the day in a corporate environment, we're always taught innovation has sort of the capital letter big I innovation and a lowercase I innovation. The big I innovation are those huge ideas, the strategic, groundbreaking, industry-changing sort of concepts, and they're usually very audacious in nature. And the little I innovation tends to be a bit more incremental, tactical, more about adaptations in the marketplace. And when I reflected on the question and what my perspective is, I think there was something wrong with those definitions. They were really focused on the idea, the what, and I perceive innovation more as a value rather than an outcome. It's more of a way of being, a way of thinking, and it really is infused in the people and the culture of an organization, where the people and the culture actually bring those ideas to life, big or small, and on an ongoing basis. And I think that's probably the key message that, or the insight that I'd share. Innovation is really about the feeling, thinking, and all of the actions and outcomes that result from innovation are nice byproducts, but it really is about the people.
As you talk about this, David, just how do you communicate that so that people who are brand new, they come in, or people that are there that they believe that?
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, what brings it to life in the organization?
Yeah, part of our onboarding process is very important. One of the things that we share with every new hire is the history of our business. We're about a decade old, and we kind of do a 10-year sort of review inside of an hour and a half. And as they see the company evolve and they see all of the innovations throughout our life, they can start adopting that culture and that heritage as their own. And I think that's a really important part of the onboarding process, is to really start understanding the environment that we're in, the pace in which we innovate, and really making that come to life in real world examples, and not just communicate that as something on a wall or a poster.
How would you characterize this commitment to innovation, like throughout the organization?
Great question. When we think about innovation as a value, it becomes a little bit more about embracing a value rather than embracing the idea of innovation. It's much easier to align and find talent and team members that share this common value. And if once we establish that common value, the goals and the activities that we set, whether they're people-oriented innovations, products or tools, whether they're innovations that we're bringing forward for our clients or prospects, as well as the internal processes of how we work, everything comes to life once we establish that as a value. That's really important for our organization and for the business as a whole.
So you must incorporate this into your interviewing process when you're assessing candidates and so on? Where did it come
Absolutely.
from?
Absolutely. I think one of the key questions that are really important for us is the idea of initiative and being proactive. We ask all of our candidates and prospects, tell me about a time when you took initiative, when you saw an opportunity, and what did you do when that situation or that opportunity arose. That gives us a really good indication to how they will act and behave inside of our organization.
Yes, and you're really thinking about the culture then, like how will they fit the culture, or and add to it, I guess, enhance it. That makes a lot of sense. What were there's when you started out, I guess, what led to making this commitment to innovation, such a central tenet of Massive Insights?
Yeah, I think working with you, Eric, and some of your observations helped us become a bit more aware of this. I think for us, we just thought it was a pretty natural thing. What I'd love to do is share the two co-founders, myself and Clarence, and our profile, our snapshot of our patterns. And if you're familiar with the predictive index and how it works, we couldn't be more different. There's certainly a little bit of a night and day, yin and yang activity sort of going on here. But what's really great is that we always share a common vision, and we have a very clear picture of the end outcome. Yet at the same time, we look at different paths in order to get there. And that's always been part of the dynamic of the founders of Massive Insights. And as a result, that typically would create friction and impede decision-making. But we found a way to really embrace the ideas and respect each other, including the different pathways to get from point A to point B. We've always embraced the idea of open, honest, direct dialogue, and letting the best ideas float to the top, not necessarily the loudest voices. And we've had a healthy dose of courage to have faith in each other, whichever direction we go. And that's created a great amount of opportunity for innovation. And innovation has created a great amount of opportunity for our business as well. And so it is very dynamic in the nature. And I think that's really started and got birthed, if you will, just based on the makeup of the people involved.
It's interesting you should say that, because I certainly don't see that everywhere. And suppressing your own ego, like, no, I'm right, no, I'm right. I mean, your perspective is literally 180 degrees from Clarence's perspective. What's important to him is not where your importance is. And yet I watch the two of you listen to each other, you challenge each other, and it's like, oh wow, he's saying something that I didn't even consider, and vice versa. Like, you really complement one another so well. And there is an element there of ego, isn't there? Like, you're having to almost park it on the side, both of you, to make this work, because you do listen to each other, which is remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's built on trust and respect, and that as a foundation. When we respect each other's what they're bringing to the table, it is a belief that 1 and 1 equals 3. Some bad arithmetic there, but it really does work in the real world as well.
Yeah, you can't say that enough about the trust and respect. So it certainly hits that. What makes you decide that you need to innovate on a process or something? What are the triggers that make you think I need to take this in another direction? What drives you to think? Like, I guess what I'm getting at is an example of, I can think of lots of one company I used to work with where if it's good enough, leave it alone. And meanwhile, but our competitors are passing us, and that can be deadly. What are the drivers for you in terms of, now's the time to innovate and really look at how should we change what we're doing, even though it's been successful in the past?
Yeah, I gave that question some thought, and this was one visual that I thought might be relevant. The pain rating scale, where there's no pain and extreme amount of pain. identifying and being aware of where things are good and where things hurt, and being able to clearly articulate that. I share this only to say that this is probably a common way of thinking about innovation and where to focus. However, the layer that we probably put on is more about the importance of innovation and the significance or the level of impact that that can create. Things that are important will affect a lot of people, whether it's all of our clients or all of our employees. It'll have a broad reach and scope, or it'll impact the marketplace. Things that are significant will make a dramatic amount of change. And so when looking at the where does it hurt and the pain scale, our idea of innovation is we can innovate in places where there isn't any pain, and we can make it better. And we can also innovate in areas that are areas to solve for, where if we solve for this, if we innovate here, it'll make a dramatic improvement in our team members' work experience or our clients' interactions with us, or the products and services that we deliver. And so innovation lives everywhere. And there really isn't a place to, just again, awareness of all of the opportunities, whether it's working and you want to make it even better, or it's broken and you want to fix it. But being able to assess and focus on the things that will have the greatest amount of importance and the greatest significance is probably how we triage the opportunities in a more systematic way.
How do you you deal with, I know this innovation is going to cause some hurt. Maybe it's a little bit or a little more, maybe even more, for certain people in the organization. How do you plan for that or deal with that on this scale?
I think the idea of creating pain, we just really need to identify the pros and cons of doing something different and weigh that in a more balanced scale, having a good sense of what the important core metrics are or the corporate strategies are, and aligning that change back to something that's bigger or broader in nature. Thinking strategically is a really easy way for us to navigate the pros and cons and balance that out.
Okay, that makes sense. And it kind of leads into my next question. How do you challenge existing assumptions? Someone is saying, but this is working. Why do we have to change? Isn't it good enough? How do you deal with like naysayers or people that are pushing back?
Just for those that are technically inclined, Star Wars or Star Trek, this visual feels very appropriate in terms of that idea of naysayers or folks that push back. The business world is transforming quite quickly. Technology is creating a lot of disruption in a positive way and opportunities as well. And I think recognizing that adaptation and evolution is really core to any business longevity and success, and being able to thrive versus survive. And when we think about how our business has evolved over time and really taken what is great today, but enhancing it, improving it, making it a bit bigger, better, faster, stronger, is something that we all recognize as a super important part of not just our own personal daily lives, but as a group or collective community of folks and professionals that are working together. And so when we think about the opportunity to create engagement with a broader group of team members, we tend to be able to move through some of the negative pushback as we see the benefit applying to a lot of folks.
So, and I guess I see you've got healthy tension on the screen there. Would you say that's something you advocate and push in the organization to challenge one another? Is that where you're going?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think one of the things that it's very difficult to create healthy tension. It's very easy to create tension and friction because everyone's got some great ideas and they might not be the same. The balance there of inserting healthy is that, like you said, that sense of safety and trust in the peers and colleagues you work with, knowing that the judgment is really at the idea, not the person level, and everyone's ideas are welcome. We have a process of adding ideas and building upon each other's ideas before going through an assessment, and being able to create a lot of different ideas, opposite ideas, is healthy when we're able to navigate through the final decisioning process. And we've really found new ways using technology and voting and all sorts of methodologies to come up with the best answer that everyone lines up into, whether they're, the answers are from them or from someone else.
Interesting. What do you find are the most common barriers and obstacles to this when you are deciding we need to move in another direction? What are the challenges you're dealing with?
Yeah, there's a number of challenges, but I think the top three that I'd offer is the idea that, oh, I don't have enough time to innovate. It's really busy, we've got the existing workload, or how is this going to impact the world? What's going to change? How are we going to actually get this stood up or make this come to life? Another obstacle or barrier could even be fear. Fear of failure, fear of success is probably a stronger obstacle. Imagine a world where things are improved. What does that look like? How different is that? Being ready for that. And that can be something that paralyzes folks as far as identifying or throwing up barriers or obstacles. And I think to provide a perspective on potential solutions, when it comes to time tends to be one of those, I'll call it excuses, that doesn't really hold water. It really is a question of prioritization. How important is this? Anything that's important, you're going to make time for. And assessing the importance is probably a way to elevate or make room in time to do something that's going to benefit. In terms of the how is this going to happen? Those that are operationally oriented or thinking about their role and what it looks like on a day-to-day basis, oftentimes focusing on the why and really clearly articulating and communicating the rationale behind the change is a very effective way we found to focus on the right things first, and then we solve the hows together. The idea of fear of success as an example, I think getting exposed to what good looks like in the industry, being able to see how innovation is truly transforming successes in the marketplace provides a bit more comfort of what success looks like and what good looks like, and can be a rallying cry to overcome that fear.
Those are some great points there. And, you can think about, I think you've hit on the key metrics there, especially fear. We certainly see that in COVID, people that are frozen, or they want to just keep doing the things they've always done, even more so because they are afraid of what's going to happen next. And your solutions there they're just spot on in terms of it's the only way you're going to overcome it. But I guess one question that I see as an obstacle is, how do you ensure that, besides yourself and Clarence, that what you're trying to influence others or sell the innovative idea on, how do you make sure that it is being communicated up and down the line to everyone, to make sure that everybody's hearing the same message instead of a potential broken telephone kind of situation?
Yeah, I think I'd hearken back to the idea of culture. When you have common and shared values, the selling actually goes away to some extent. There's a lot less of it required when you have a common belief that innovation is kind of core to our business, and people welcome change. People will welcome the opportunity. When you have established a really strong culture of innovation, the strategic elements, the innovation, the actual transformation is just a smoother process. And I think that's the advice I'd give, is that rather than sell an idea, really look and evaluate how you can adjust and improve the culture of innovation, and then the selling of ideas will follow naturally. I think the great quote is culture eats strategy for breakfast, by Peter Drucker, and that's certainly something that we hold true to.
So focusing on culture will drive everything else if you've got the culture right. If you don't have that, you've got to invest in your people.
And you have to sell over and over and over again, and it becomes tedious, and it definitely can be a stumbling block to making innovation come to life on an organic basis. Like, organic innovation is probably the best version of it, rather than a planned or concerted top-down version of that.
Yeah, you can't, from the top down, you can't see everything. Organically growing from the ground up, people are going to see things you hadn't considered, and it'll be a stronger innovation. But that culture is the foundation for that. It's great comments. Can you talk to us about the role of research and data in driving the innovations, like that make you realize, yeah, we need to move on what we're doing now?
Yeah, I think there's a few ways to look at this. What I'd share is that because our business is focused on data, and we help our clients, Fortune 500 leading companies in a number of different dozens of industries, innovate. And we become part of that innovation transformation, that journey with them, by the power of data, having the right data sets, the speed, the accuracy, the range, the types of data, being able to get your hands on it, make it accessible, clean, trustworthy, having that master data that folks rely on and trust, being able to analyze it in ways that haven't been able to be done before, answering questions that have always been plaguing business, and now finally we can begin to tackle them and answer them demonstrably, mathematically, scientifically, analyzing the information using the most current technologies, machine learning and deep dive analytics is very powerful as a source of creating innovative opportunities and innovative solutions backed by data. And then bringing it to action, I think, is where the fun really begins. Seeing the innovation in market and being able to quantitatively demonstrate the value that that innovation is generating. That's where it really cycles back to creating more data sets and kind of repeat and rinse here.
So adjusting the actions give you more more data. You come back, you reevaluate, you create more actions that are appropriate. I always think of someone who said to me once, consultants come in, they tell you how to do it. They tell you what you need to get done. Anybody can tell you that, but how do you do it? And so that really resonates with me in terms of that the concrete actions that are meaningful and can flow to the bottom line. Can you talk about how the company, Massive Insights, how you've dealt with the pandemic itself, what its role in shaping your view of innovation? Like, how do you think it's impacted your view of innovation in general the last 2 years?
Absolutely. Because we work with a range of clients, we've observed this in their worlds, and we've also experienced it in our world. Everyone is going through an accelerated version of digital transformation, identifying technologies and new frameworks and processes that streamline the way we work, that take into account the idea of a virtual workforce. We were very fortunate before the pandemic to kind of be ahead of this. And so technologically speaking, we were really set up well, and we didn't skip a beat. We always offered a little bit more of a flexible work from wherever you're productive when we were in the office. Despite being in the office, we always encourage folks, if you've got some undistracted work that you need to really hunker down and the best place to work is at home, absolutely go for it. And so because we were set up in a really nice way. We have increased our investments in digital transformations, and we'll continue to do that for the foreseeable future to make it even easier.
Interesting. I know you were saying you just a big investment this month, so that's interesting. So you're embracing it and the technology itself to support it, to make sure it's, if it's not effective enough, then what technology do I need to take it to the next level is what you're really saying. I'm not walking away from it. I'm not simply, you know, having biases that make me not want to do it because, oh, for this reason or that reason, I'm going to find a workaround around it because we're going to get there because we have to. I think that that's some great thoughts for everyone to take back with. What were the behavioral traits you looked for on your executive team to help drive this vision of constant commitment to innovation?
Yeah, I think I'll have to say part of that digital transformation we did was being introduced to Predictive Index and taking advantage of some of the great features and tools that are available. When it came to leadership and the mix of individuals, this is just a quick view of, I think, Eric, you might be actually talking about this later down. This is team discovery inside of Predictive Index. And we love this view. It basically plots all of our team members or managers in different quadrants. And we can start really thinking a bit more critically about, you know, do we have an over concentration of individuals in a particular quadrant? What is the right sort of balance in order to create the right sort of team? This sort of view helps us really identify the seats on the bus that we want to create or open up, and getting everyone in the right places. So it's been an invaluable tool in helping us look at behavior traits for leadership, and also pushing us into new areas that we probably wouldn't have seen if we didn't have some additional digital technology like Predictive Index to help us out.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. You know, you've got some very different people, like very wired completely opposite, but it's but you're using it strategically or tactically to drive that, which makes a lot of sense. What do you need next? Where is the focus? You mentioned also organic growth in terms of idea of innovation or doing it organically. How do you get from the ground up, generate ideas? Is it come back to this, like where you're looking at this, or how do you get all your employees, not just leadership, to want to innovate?
I think the simplest answer is maybe, again, goes back to culture, but something that we embrace is empowering team members to be comfortable failing, to be comfortable asking for forgiveness rather than seeking out permission. They say it's easier to do. I think there's a beauty in that. When someone identifies a contribution or idea and they want to take the energy and time to move that forward, adding any additional barriers to that would be foolish if we want to encourage that organic innovation. And that's something that I think we hear a lot of great ideas coming from all over the place all the time. And because of the digital technology we use, whether it's Slack or whatever communications methods, you can see that percolate on an ongoing day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis, which does create a little bit of a groundswell of openness that other folks can do it, whether their voices are, whether they're naturally introverted or extroverted. The digital playground is kind of a level playing field that everyone can type in an idea and a message, and everyone can add an emoji, an encouragement, thumbs up that provides that level of activity.
So you're using digital technology again to reinforce this need for everybody to get involved. Again, you're embracing the technological changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting. If you could go back to the slide before just for a second. I got a question. No, that one, yes. Because the change journey is unique to all, and how everybody, you can see here, people are opposites. Some are just going to embrace change and just love it. I always call them the ready, fire, aim people because they can't get enough change. And then you've got people that are completely opposite, like hate change for the sake of change. You can argue with me till I'm blue in the face and how the facts of how great it is. And it's scaring me because I don't like uncertainty. I need certainty in my life. I need predictability. So it is so unique that everybody's going to take it differently. And we certainly see this on your team. How do you support employees through this change journey? How do you do that? I guess.
I think
everybody's on side.
I think some of the personas that you described in terms of the desire to want stability and consistency and kind of have that know-how or knowledge of what the day-to-day will look like, they're probably one of the strongest people in our innovation value chain, if you will. For those folks, part of the innovation team, to be able to create change and make it stable, to be able to take an idea and think through all of the particulars of how this will work and where it'll fall, is a critical part of innovation. It's not just the big idea, like we said, it's about making that come to life and live. And folks that typically don't like change are great at identifying how we implement innovation so that it reduces the amount of change. So it's kind of a weird way of saying their skills and talents and natural abilities are really critical for innovation to come to life.
So it takes everybody. There is no one right way, is what you're talking about as well.
Yeah, if you don't have them, you just have a list of great ideas that never get done.
Right. So they bring the practicality to it. And I guess the last question, in terms of innovation as not as being perpetual, constantly getting everyone to think about it, how do you align and motivate your leaders and your team so that they're constantly thinking about, should we continue to do this at all, or should we innovate it to something else? How do you keep that going so it's not like a one-time thing?
I think just in terms of the idea of change, everyone's unique. And I think one of the things that I'd love to say is that we understand and embrace that diversity of talents and mental models and skills. And what we like to do, and we're a tight-knit sort of group, is to be able to address people's unique needs and ways. Sometimes people learn visually, sometimes folks learn practically, some folks really need to understand the theory behind it before trying it in the real world. And I think that's that understanding is really important, and to be able to recognize the unique position that folks are coming from and present it in a way that plays into their strengths is going to be a really important part of that change journey. In terms of motivating folks so that we ensure innovation is not a one-time sort of deal, one of the things that we do is just openly celebrate innovation. And we've got a channel in our Slack called Kudos, and the amount of activity that goes on, it makes me want to cry some days in terms of tears of joy. It's really touching to see peers highlighting, high-fiving other peers about something that they've done, whether it's helping them out through training, whether it's actually over and above sort of activity on a project, or whether it's introducing a new idea and challenging the rest to see, who else can build and add on or be part of that new idea. And celebrating that on an ongoing basis is motivation in itself, for sure. But it also helps us prevent any one-time event mentality and make it part of this normal course of the day.
Part of the culture. It goes back to culture, each strategy. Absolutely. Great comments, and thanks for this, David. With that, I think, Alyssa, why don't we open it up to any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few here, a good handful. So I'll just jump right in. I think, David, you just touched on one of the questions, but I want to ask it anyway in case there's anything you wanted to add. Scott asks, David, how do you celebrate or reward successful innovations? You have your Kudos channel. Is there anything else that you do among your staff?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we want to continue to do is link the activities and the innovations and individual contributions back to some sort of performance So there's the hard reward that gets tied back to the individual. As part of our performance evaluation, it's not just the goals, but it's also the values. And we look at that in a fairly balanced weighting. How you go about doing things is something that we want to recognize and reward and celebrate. And we make it part of the performance evaluation process. We do spot gifts and bonuses as well, and that's always a nice thing to recognize it immediately as it happens. And then finally, the actual innovation, if it's helping our lives to do our jobs better, faster, easier, or create better quality or newer ideas, afford us more time to think and ideate, that's a reward in itself. And I think that's one of the things that, going back to artificially incentivizing innovation, is going to be a tough game to play. I'd rather redefine the game as like there's a culture of innovation and we recognize and celebrate that. The final thing that we might do is we just take time and take stock, whether that's a year in review or quarterly review. And we just look back and say, what were the amazing things that happened? What are the things that we're personally proud of? And we celebrate it amongst ourselves openly within our teams.
That's awesome. Thank you. Some great ideas there. The next question we have here is, do you see any challenges to innovation due to work from home arrangements? And if yes, how do you solve those?
Yes. There are a great deal of challenges due to work from home. While it's great, it provides us less stress in terms of commuting, traffic, and whatnot, or wearing pants if that's your thing. There are some challenges. I think when you do have a group of people physically in the same room, looking at the same whiteboard and building on an idea, there's something magical about that sort of experience. Digital technology is improving. We're finding new tools and new methods to improve that sort of experience. But we're still waiting and creating our own sort of opportunities to do that. So it is challenging, but it's not impossible by any means. I think what we gain through the gap that virtual work has created, one of the gains is that we can meet more often, and we can certainly chew on ideas more frequently or come back to them. And that's a gain that I think can, conceptually offset some of the losses. One of the other ideas that we do is to actually build out a how are you doing sort of emoji quick poll that prompts everyone in the company to put a face, whether that's happy, sad, crying, sick, cold, something funny, something painful. And it's not the same as walking down the hall and seeing someone stressed out, but it gives us an opportunity to at least showcase, how we're feeling to the group, and for others to jump in and say, hope you feel better, or how can I help, or that's amazing, why are you so happy? So there's a lot of ways that we can try to artificially sort of create that physical environment in the digital space, but we're still working on some new ideas, and I'm sure we'll come up with some innovative ideas on that as well.
I think you're going to lead everybody in this area if you the way you're embracing innovation. You made a comment there. I was just like that. It brings a lot of positives, but there are some losses with this digital way. And so, yeah, it's not the same as it was. Absolutely. So how do you, but can it be as effective if you do it differently, if you innovate? And I guess that would be the question for anyone. You're saying, for instance, you meet more often. Like, what does that mean? Is that, is it all virtual? Like, is there some kind of where they come in once in a while, or is it just strictly, no, we have a much heavier cadence digitally?
Yeah, we always follow the health and government guidance in terms of physical, but what we've done is kept the office as an optional place to meet. So it isn't fully hybrid, but I think the idea here is that while managing occupancy and being uber conscious of people's safety and health. We do want folks to be able to have an environment where they can come together. We have done events that have been just more social, having lunch and watching a movie together in a private VIP sort of setting with very few people, inside of a small team. Those are some ideas that we've done that have had some really great feedback. The idea that we can bond while we're doing work is something that's super important that we lost, but we can find ways or introduce events. We are looking at retreats and thinking about how we can create an environment where folks can come and unplug as well. We talk about being saturated with Zoom calls and the fatigue that creates, recognizing that and trying to offset that with some other ideas that are more physical or more in nature. Those are the sorts of balanced thinking that we want to go through.
No, it's a great response. And I saw in the chat, some people are popping up with some other virtual sims ideas in there. Hopefully we can capture those, Alyssa, on how they're doing. It's interesting.
Absolutely. I love that emoji idea. It's so simple, but I think there's so much value in that for folks who are working remotely, and especially us high Bs are very social and we need that connection and those check-ins. So that's great. Just looking at time here, got about 5 minutes left, so we can get a couple more questions in. We had this one submitted through the chat. In a large organization of 7,000 plus employees, how would you shift towards a culture of innovation? And this person's in the heavy equipment industry. Any ideas there, David?
That's a great problem to chew on. I think obviously there's a bunch of questions and unique attributes that I'm sure some of our friends at Predictive Index can help out with. One of the things that I think is inspirational inside of a larger organization, and we work with companies that are 20, 30, 40,000 employees. So we get a really neat vantage point of seeing different industries of different company sizes. And one observation I'd share is that find a small group. There's nothing better than having a small group that's rapidly innovating and embracing it. You create that trusted culture within that small group and become a model for the rest of the organization. Those stories will carry so quickly to the top ranks and will come down in a very nice way. If you can prove out success, if you can find your model or way of working and way of thinking about innovation, and that's going to be unique to your environment, your people, your particular problems and pains to solve. But it just takes a spark of 2, 3 people kind of taking this to heart, and then that grows, and that spark will become a wildfire pretty quick.
Yeah, it gets recognized. I know some companies that they actually put in like a pirate, separate little group that they're out there, trying to push and see where do we need to go, and then they take, well, how can we implement it back? So you're not just simply, it's a great idea. It's like, oh, no, this is how we can get it done. But yeah, that's some great thought there in terms of this small group.
Yeah, I can think of just a small, like a large utilities company that fundamentally have a lot of structure and maybe generally has less innovation, and a pocket of them found a way to take more data, visualize it, bring it up, some insights that strategically impact the business as a whole. As different departments heard about this, each of them started saying, okay, well, how do I get my data? How do I create my insights? And it really did the dominoes started falling in across, whether it's finance or workplace, HR, or operations, or the technology groups. And it's quite phenomenal to see how quickly that happens, even in environments that are typically known to be a bit slower to change. You find that spark, and I think great things can happen.
That's great.
Thanks, David. We got about a minute left, and I still want to pass it back to Eric to give our thank you gift for today. But the last question that maybe we'll tie in, and there's a couple we didn't get to, so we can reach out to you with David's answers there. From your experience, have you seen any correlation between certain PI patterns and innovation? That might be a question for Eric too.
Yeah, maybe Eric, if you want to go first on that.
Well, you know, obviously high dominance, I want to win, and low formality. I don't care how we get there. Like, I just don't care, and that drives innovation. See that in an entrepreneur. But is it effective? Will it work? And I'm coming back to what you said earlier, David. You know, you want some people that they got to follow them. They got to have a methodology. In other words, they got to make it real. They got to put it in structure to make it actually happen. Somebody's got a great vision, but how do we drive around those landmines? That's critical. So you do need both. It's more than just one person, I guess, is what I'm saying. And you know, opposites can really complement and really raise everyone. So that's my comment on it.
And I'd echo that and say that folks that showcase the hardest of rules and the places where the least amount of change, that's probably a spot where innovation can happen. There's probably an opportunity there. So they might not be the idea generator or the who cares how, but they might be the source of the opportunity. So hearing and understanding the rigidity of those spots probably is a place to scratch and dig into.
Yes.
Great.
I think we're out of time.
We are out of time. David, we want to thank you so much for being here, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. Eric, I'm just going to pass it over so you can share with our attendees our thank you for being here.
Sure. So, and thank you, David, for this great conversation. I've got some great ideas myself out of this. I really appreciate this. But David did show you a slide that how he's using the new team discovery software to really leverage innovation and understand where does he need to focus. Our free gift for attending is I'm happy to analyze one of your teams and walk you through what are the strengths and blind spots of your teams and align what are your strategic objectives, and so that you can create a real meaningful action plan on moving forward. So happy to discuss that with you at any time. So that's our offer to you for attending.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we're looking forward to seeing you at the next session. And thanks again, David.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Take care, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye.